Well, I am going to head off to my table, my design table over here, because I am doing a shrink plastic project.
I love the way that you did this too, because every time I think about shrink plastic...
Wait a minute, you can see my little stash of stuff now. This was hiding all of this. Oops.
Every time you think about shrink plastic, I always think about oven, because when you said you were going to do shrink plastic, I thought, oh, I've got to get my oven out for you. But she didn't do it in an oven.
So I'm going to head off. I need to take these over to my table. This is my family. These are my kids. So you get to introduce me. What are you going to say? What are you going to say? Wait, I'm stuck.
Okay, that was really short. Tiffany's in her studio. So here's Tiffany with her great pocket pals. Tiff?
Here are the supplies that you will need to create your pocket pal. You need a pattern, scissors, black marking pen, colored pencils, hole punch, yarn, sandpaper, a heat gun or a toaster oven or your home oven, and your opaque shrink plastic. Now this is the plastic that you can see through in order to trace your pattern, but once you shrink it, it turns white. The first step is preparing your plastic, so you will want to sand it. So sand back and forth, both directions, diagonally, so that you have a surface that the colored pencils can cling to. So continue to sand this plastic back and forth, up and down, across, so that you have a nice finish. The next step is to trace your pattern. And I am just using the Sharpie permanent marker. And I definitely like to use this wider marker. Don't go too fine with your marker, or else when it comes time to cut, it cuts that black line right off. So trace your pattern onto your plastic, and again, this is the sanded side. So here's something I learned when I was preparing my first sample. On the instructions it says to flip pattern for the other half. Well, I just flipped my plastic for the other half, so what that means is that you end up with half a pattern on the front of your plastic and half a pattern on the back of your plastic. Now, because when this shrinks, you can't see the pattern from the front to the back, so it's not going to matter, but it looks a little odd. So take the time before you start your project to actually trace out your complete pattern. Or else you can do like I did, and I'll show you how I kind of fixed this. All right, so you get the idea here that we are simply tracing that pattern. But what you need to do now is go back over to the sanded side and trace back over where you've drawn on the back of your plastic. And that also means that you need to do the same thing on the back so that you have at least a full pattern on the back. But again, do as I say, not as I do, and trace yourself off a full pattern so that you have that to completely trace on the front of your plastic. The next step is to color your pattern with your colored pencils. And this is so cool because you have sanded this. Those colored pencils will adhere right to that plastic. They kind of stick in the grooves. I also found that I do like to color in one direction. Of course, this is the big kid in me coloring. Younger kids might not care which direction that they color, but the bit of the perfectionist in me, what I saw when I shrank this plastic is that you could see the direction of the pencil strokes. So decide how you want, or the kids want to color this pattern. Honestly, this is like going back to childhood and doing your coloring book coloring. I found it really meditative. When I was making my samples, it's like, I love this idea of just sitting here and coloring. You know what you might think about also is to prepare several of these, have them traced out. So when the kids say, I have nothing to do, Mom, you can grab them out and grab your colored pencils and you can set them down and they can color up some pocket pals. I'm going to continue coloring here until this is finished, and then we will go on to our next step, which is cutting it out. Okay, I am finishing up the coloring on my pocket pal, and a couple of other hints I wanted to tell you. When selecting your colors, remember that when this shrinks, that the colors do intensify. So if you pick a really dark color to begin with and it shrinks down, it may be darker than what you would like. And you need to put a pretty solid coat of that colored pencil on here. Any place that you do see the plastic showing through, when it shrinks, you will see some of that white showing through. So I'm coming back just to be sure that I have all the color that I want. You may notice that I did not put eyelashes on my little girl yet. What I found in creating my samples is that when I did the eyelashes before I colored the face, they tended to smear. So I am going to turn this around so I make sure I get these the direction that I want. I also come back and overline that black because I have colored over part of it. You can also do this after it shrinks, but it's just as easy to do that right now. The other thing that you want to do, and we will get to that after we cut it out, is to be sure to punch your holes. Anytime you need to punch any holes, do it before it shrinks. So that's what these little marks here are for, is to punch our holes. Also, this part goes down into your pocket so that I didn't color it all the way down because you're not going to see that. So take your scissors and cut on the outside of that black line. If you cut away too much of the black, you can just grab your marking pen and come back in and clean up that line. Again, I'm not worrying about it at the bottom because we don't see that part. What I do want to do is cut to the point where you can see where I cut out her arms so that she has a way to grab onto your pocket. I think in addition to just putting this on clothing pockets, this would make really cute bookmarks, or you could put them into plants. You could have a very cheerful look to your houseplants. So on the pattern, it does show that our cutting line is the dotted line, which is right around her hands and her arms. See this point right here? It's too sharp, and so because it's going into the pocket, I can just cut it off. You're not going to see that. I can just round it out. Here's a hint too. You don't have to cut from the front, remember. Makes it much easier if you just turn your piece over to cut. And what I want is Hiko Heidi to tell you her hints about cutting, which she has taught me. We'll talk about that after my demo. Because there are techniques to using your scissors that make it much easier to control your scissors. So we'll be sure that Eco Heidi talks about that. Rounding off this edge also. And I can see along the edge here that I do have still a little bit of plastic showing. As I mentioned, you always want to be sure and do your hole punching before you shrink your plastic. So I'm following the dots that I placed on here and punch that out. And on this particular Pocket Pal, I want to put more hair on her than what the original pattern, so I'm going to come back and actually punch a hole in between each of these. And hopefully this shall work. What happens if you get these holes too close together is that plastic can tend to tear when it's shrinking, but we should be fine. Okay, so she has been sanded. We have colored her with our colored pencils, cut her out. So now it's time to shrink. And as I mentioned, you can use a toaster oven or a home oven. Let's see, I want to fix this here while I'm chatting. You can use a toaster oven or a home oven, but I love to show you how this shrinks, and it's hard for me to do that so that you can see it in a toaster oven. So I'm going to use my heat gun. And heat gun is really great for small pieces, not so great for a piece this size, but we're going to make it work today. And I just realized that I forgot my wooden skewer, so I'm going to grab that real quickly. Okay, this is what I use in order to hold my plastic down, first of all, so that it doesn't blow off the table, and also it's going to help me as we start shrinking this piece. There it goes. It's fun to watch it shrink. As I was watching, I was thinking we should make pocket monsters and not shrink them all the way. What you need to do next is you need to grab a piece of cardboard, which I don't have at my work table either, so I'm going to have to go run and grab that. And we're going to heat this back up so that the arms will be raised in order to fit them into the pocket. So I don't have a piece of cardboard, but I do have several thicknesses of paper, so that will work. Sometimes you do need to be careful because if the pieces heat up too much, they can stick to each other. You could see I was able to pull that apart. What I want to do is I want to heat up this little hand just a little bit more so that it will lay down. Cute, cute, cute. So she's just going to sit here for a minute or so and cool down, and then we are going to add her hair. I have started my yarn hair and I have one more piece to add. And what you do is you work on the back side, you fold your yarn in half and use your skewer to feed that fold down in through the hole. Give it a good press. And pull it through the front, and then of course you just thread those ends back through that loop. Oh my gosh, she is so cute. Wild hair. If you wanted to, you could make, of course, different hairstyles. Give her a big puffy ponytail. There you go. So there's so many different looks that you can create. And we're also offering the pattern for the little teddy bear. So you have something that the little boys might enjoy along with the girls. So have some fun with a mommy and me crafting time and create your very own pocket pals.